In all of recorded human history, we had never encountered a civilization quite like the Galactic Empire. They emerged from the darkness between stars, their massive ships casting shadows across our lunar colonies, their technology far beyond anything we had achieved in our modest ventures beyond Earth. But they had one critical weakness. They had never fought humans before. I remember standing in the United Nations Space Command Center that fateful day, watching alongside Admiral Chen as their crystalline vessels took position around Earth's orbit. The air was thick with tension, yet there was an underlying current of determination among the staff. Their fingers hovered over consoles, eyes fixed on screens showing the alien armada that easily dwarfed our combined planetary defense fleet. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, Lieutenant Sarah Parker announced, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. The message that followed was transmitted in perfect English, a feat that should have impressed us if it wasn't so terrifying. Your species will be integrated into the Galactic Empire. Resistance is unnecessary. We have assimilated 10,000 civilizations. You will be the 10,001st. The Admiral's weathered face remained impassive as he studied the holographic display of Earth and the surrounding space. I could almost see the gears turning in his mind, decades of tactical experience coming into play. Send them our response, he ordered, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. What happened next would go down in history as humanity's most audacious moment. We didn't respond with threats or pleas for mercy. Instead, we transmitted our history, carefully selected footage of every major conflict humanity had ever fought, from ancient battles to modern warfare, from guerrilla tactics to full-scale invasions. We showed them humanity's relentless drive to survive, to adapt, to overcome impossible odds. But the real kicker was the data package that followed, detailed analyses of how human warfare had evolved, how we had learned to turn seemingly superior forces' strengths against them, and most importantly, statistics of how often the supposedly stronger side had fallen to human ingenuity and sheer determination. Consider this a professional courtesy, Admiral Chen's message concluded. We're not threatening you. We're warning you. Humanity has spent its entire existence fighting itself, perfecting the art of war against equals. You claim to have never lost a war, but ask yourself this: have you ever faced an enemy who had millennia of combat experience against themselves? The silence that followed was deafening. For 3 long days, the Empire's ships remained motionless in orbit. We monitored their communications, detecting massive data transfers between their vessels as they presumably analyzed our message and debated their next move. On the 4th day, something unprecedented happened. The Empire's flagship transmitted a single message. We have reviewed your species' history. Our analysts have identified 78 instances where technologically inferior human forces have defeated superior opponents through what you call asymmetric warfare. We have no protocols for such scenarios. I'll never forget what happened next. One by one, their ships began to withdraw, their crystalline forms catching the sunlight as they retreated beyond the moon's orbit. Within hours, they had vanished completely, leaving behind only a final transmission. Your species will be classified as extremely hazardous. We will seek easier worlds to integrate. That day, humanity learned something crucial about itself. Sometimes, the most powerful weapon isn't the size of your fleet or the advancement of your technology. Sometimes, it's simply the reputation you've built through countless generations of facing adversity. The Galactic Empire never came back, but they did us one last favor. They spread the word. In the years that followed, we would learn that our reputation now preceded us across the stars. Beware the humans. They've spent their entire history learning how to win impossible wars. That message became our unintentional shield among the stars, but it also marked the beginning of something far more complex. As humanity began its first careful steps into deeper space, we discovered that our reputation had created an unexpected diplomatic challenge. Most spacefaring races now approached Earth with a mixture of fear and fascination, like cautious observers studying a sleeping giant. The Interstellar Relations Committee, where I now served as a senior analyst, had its hands full dealing with the aftermath. We received reports from our deep space probes about alien civilizations actively changing their travel routes to avoid human-controlled space. Some even abandoned resource-rich systems near our expansion zones, leaving behind fully functional mining operations and research stations. They're treating us like we're some kind of cosmic plague, Dr. Rivera remarked during one of our strategy sessions, her holographic projection flickering slightly as she spoke from the Mars colony. We need to show them we're more than just our capacity for warfare. She was right, of course. The irony wasn't lost on us. Our demonstration of military prowess to avoid conflict had effectively isolated us from the galactic community. Trade opportunities were being lost, cultural exchanges were becoming increasingly rare, and the vast knowledge we could have gained from other civilizations remained frustratingly out of reach. Then came the incident at Proxima Centauri. Our first extrasolar colony detected an unknown ship in distress, its systems failing as it drifted into the system. The colony's governor faced a difficult choice: maintain our fearsome reputation by ignoring the vessel, or risk showing what some might perceive as weakness by offering assistance. The decision to help revealed something extraordinary. The ship belonged to a species called the Nexarians, one of the few civilizations that had successfully resisted integration into the Galactic Empire centuries ago. Their captain, a being who introduced himself as the first speaker, shared information that changed our understanding of the galaxy's political landscape. Your warning to the Empire, the first speaker explained through our translation systems, did more than just protect Earth. It shattered their image of invincibility. For the first time in millennia, other worlds began to question whether submission to the Empire was truly inevitable. We learned that a quiet rebellion was spreading through the Empire's territories, not through warfare or open defiance, but through something far more powerful: the spread of an idea, the notion that even the most formidable force in the galaxy could be made to retreat by the mere possibility of facing a difficult opponent. Admiral Chen, now retired but still actively involved in strategic planning, saw the bigger picture immediately. "We didn't just defend Earth that day," he said during an emergency council meeting. "We accidentally sparked a revolution in how civilizations view their relationship with the Empire." But with this new understanding came a troubling revelation. The Empire's retreat might not have been permanent. They might have simply withdrawn to analyze, adapt, and prepare. The first speaker's intelligence suggested that the Empire was undergoing its first major military reformation in thousands of years, studying human warfare tactics and developing countermeasures. As I compile this report for the Security Council, our long-range sensors have detected unusual activity at the edges of our monitored space. The patterns are too organized to be natural, too deliberate to be random. The Empire's ships may have retreated, but their observers never truly left. They're watching, learning, and waiting. The question now isn't whether they'll return, but whether humanity's reputation alone will be enough when they do. Because this time, they won't be facing an unknown threat. They'll be facing an enemy they've studied, analyzed, and prepared for. And somewhere out there, in the vast darkness between the stars, the Empire is adapting. The Empire's return wasn't heralded by massive fleets or dramatic ultimatums. Instead, it began with silence, a gradual disconnection of our deep space communication arrays, one by one, like stars blinking out in the night sky. Our outer colonies went dark over the course of a week, and the tension in the USC's headquarters was thick enough to cut with a knife. I was reviewing security feeds with Commander Lisa Hayes when the first confirmed sighting came in. The Empire's ships had changed. Gone were the crystalline structures that had once made their fleet so distinctive. In their place were angular, dark vessels that seemed to absorb both light and our scanning signals. They had clearly studied not just our history, but our technology, our tactics, and our weaknesses. "They're using our own playbook against us," Commander Hayes muttered, her fingers dancing across the holographic display as she analyzed their approach vectors. "Look at these formations. They're mimicking Earth's historical naval warfare strategies. They've done their homework." The Nexarian first speaker's ship, which had remained in orbit around Earth as a sign of solidarity, transmitted an urgent warning. "These are not the Empire's primary battle groups." The message read, "These are their scouts, their test forces. They're probing your defenses, analyzing your responses. The real attack is yet to come." Our response had to be perfect. Too aggressive, and we'd reveal our defensive capabilities. Too passive, and we'd show weakness. Admiral Chen's successor, Admiral Patel, gathered Earth's best strategic minds in a secure facility beneath the Pacific. I was there as an analyst, watching as they pored over centuries of human military history, looking for an answer to an impossible question. How do you outthink an enemy that has studied every move you've ever made? The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Rivera, still monitoring from Mars, noticed something in the Empire's new ship designs. "They're not just copying our strategies," she said, her hologram leaning forward excitedly. "They're copying our thinking patterns. They've become predictable in their attempt to predict us." That's when it hit us. The Empire had spent years studying human warfare, but they'd studied it like an academic subject, analyzing patterns, memorizing responses, creating countermeasures. But they missed something fundamental about humanity. Our greatest military victories hadn't come from following historical precedent, but from breaking it. As we watched their scout ships methodically testing our outer defense perimeters, a plan began to form. It was insane, unprecedented, and went against every strategic doctrine in our database. But that was exactly why it might work. The Empire had learned to think like human military strategists, but they hadn't learned to think like desperate, creative, slightly crazy humans. Admiral Patel stood before the assembled command staff, her expression grave but determined. "They expect us to fight like soldiers," she said, her voice steady. "So instead, we're going to fight like humans. Unpredictable, unconventional, and utterly impossible to prepare for." The plan was set in motion. As the Empire's scout ships continued their methodical approach, we began what appeared to be a standard defensive response. But beneath the surface, something unprecedented was brewing. We had just days to prepare before their main fleet arrived. And what we were about to do would either go down in history as humanity's greatest tactical innovation or our last desperate gambit. The tension reached its peak when our long-range sensors detected the Empire's main battle fleet emerging from faster-than-light travel. Their ships filled our monitoring screens, a vast armada that made their previous force look like a scouting party. This was it, the moment that would determine not just Earth's fate, but the future of every civilization that had ever dreamed of resisting the Empire's rule. As I stood in the command center, watching the enemy fleet approach, I couldn't help but think about how the Empire had never lost a war before encountering humans. In just a few hours, we would find out if they were about to lose their first. As the Empire's main fleet approached, our initial plan seemed to be working perfectly, almost too perfectly. Their ships were responding exactly as we predicted, following the tactical patterns we deliberately leaked through our compromised communication channels. But then our sensors detected something that made my blood run cold. "Energy signatures don't match our previous records," Lieutenant Parker announced, her voice tense as she analyzed the incoming data. "These aren't just upgraded versions of their old ships. They're different." The holographic display showed something we hadn't anticipated. The Empire's vessels were adapting in real time, their very structure shifting and changing like liquid metal. Dr. Rivera's voice crackled through our emergency channel from Mars, panic evident in her tone. "They didn't just study our past warfare. They studied our potential future. Those ships are incorporating theoretical technologies we haven't even developed yet. They're using our own unrealized innovations against us." The revelation hit us like a physical blow. The Empire hadn't spent years merely studying our history. They'd analyzed our research databases, our theoretical physics papers, our speculative military technology proposals. They had taken humanity's dreams of future warfare and made them reality. We were facing weapons we had imagined but never built, defenses we had theorized but never implemented. But in their thoroughness, the Empire had made a crucial mistake. Admiral Patel's eyes lit up with understanding as she watched their fleet's movements. They're fighting the war we would fight, if we had their resources and technology. But that's not who we are. Humanity's greatest victories have never come from having the best weapons. Commander Hayes caught on immediately. They're trying to beat us at being us, but with better technology. They don't understand that humanity's real strength isn't in our weapons or strategies. She paused, a slight smile forming. It's in our ability to do the completely unexpected. That's when the Nexarian first speaker transmitted something unexpected: detailed scans of the Empire's new ships. "We've seen this before," the message read. "Every race they've absorbed, they've done this, taken that civilization's ultimate military evolution and turned it against them. But they've never faced a species that actively defies its own evolution." As if to prove the point, our long-range sensors detected something new: a second Imperial fleet approaching from the opposite direction. They were trying to catch us in a classic pincer movement, exactly as human military doctrine would suggest. But they didn't realize we had abandoned military doctrine the moment we detected their approach. "Signal the Mars colonies," Admiral Pavel commanded. "Initiative Prometheus is now in effect." Around Earth, what appeared to be defensive platforms suddenly began moving, revealing themselves to be something entirely different. The Empire had studied our military history so thoroughly that they'd forgotten to consider our civilian innovations. Dr. Rivera's voice came through again, this time steady and confident. "Mining rigs repositioned, atmospheric processors standing by, terraforming equipment ready. We weren't preparing to fight their fleet with weapons. We were about to show them why humans had survived countless near-extinction events on Earth." The Empire's fleet commanders must have been confused when our defensive platforms began spewing what appeared to be clouds of debris into space. Their sensors would be telling them it was just dust and gas, hardly a threat to their advanced shields. They couldn't know that we had learned more from surviving on our hostile homeworld than we had from all our military conflicts combined. As I watched the massive Imperial fleets close in from both sides, I realized we were about to show them something they had never seen in their 10,000 conquered civilizations: a species that could turn the very environment of space itself into a weapon. They had studied how humans fight wars, but they had never truly understood how humans survive. The trap was set. The Empire's fleets were committed to their approach, and in just a few moments they would learn why humanity's greatest weapon had never been our military might, but our unmatched ability to adapt and overcome. The real question was, would they survive the lesson? The Empire's fleets moved through the cloud of debris with the confidence of a force that had never known defeat. Their advanced shields easily deflected the dust and gas, exactly as we had anticipated. What they didn't realize was that every particle they were pushing through had been specifically engineered by our terraforming systems, the same technology we developed to make hostile planets habitable. Cloud density reaching critical levels. Dr. Rivera reported from Mars, her voice steady despite the tension. Atmospheric processors at maximum output. The space between Earth and the approaching fleets had become a soup of microscopic particles, each one carrying a fraction of the same compounds we used to transform the atmospheres of dead worlds. The Empire's ships began to slow, their sensors presumably detecting something unusual about their environment. But it was already too late. The particles weren't weapons. They were catalysts. And the energy from the Empire's own shields was about to trigger a reaction that would make space itself turn against them. Commander Hayes counted down the seconds. Reaction initiating in 5, 4, 3. The Empire's ships started to turn, finally realizing the danger, but their own shields had trapped them in the cloud. 2, 1. What happened next was something no military strategist could have planned for, because it wasn't a military tactic at all. It was pure science, the kind of desperate innovation that had kept humanity alive through ice ages and global catastrophes. The cloud of engineered particles, energized by the Empire's shields, began to crystallize, not into weapons or barriers, but into an expanding lattice of molecular structures that consumed energy as it grew. The Empire's mighty ships, for all their advanced technology, found themselves trapped in a rapidly solidifying pocket of space. Their shields, their weapons, even their engines were only feeding the reaction, making it stronger. They had studied every weapon humanity had ever created, but they had never considered that we might turn their own power against them. By all the stars, the Nexarian first speaker transmitted, all evident even through the translation, "You've turned space itself into a cage." But the Empire wasn't finished. Their ships began to change shape again, trying to adapt to this new threat. That's when Admiral Pavel revealed our final card. "Release the secondary catalysts," she ordered. The defensive platforms around Earth launched a new wave of particles, these ones designed not to trap, but to transform. The crystalline structure entrapping the Empire's ships began to change color, turning from transparent to a deep, absorbing black. Their adaptive hulls, which had copied our theoretical technologies so perfectly, were now working against them. Every change they made, every attempt to break free, only created new surfaces for the engineered particles to bond with. The mightiest fleet in the galaxy found itself immobilized not by superior firepower, but by the same kind of innovative thinking that had allowed humans to survive on Earth long before we ever looked to the stars. Their ships, for all their power, were now floating in a sea of engineered crystal that grew stronger with every attempt to break free. Then came the final signal from Mars. Dr. Rivera's voice held a note of triumph. "Crystallization complete. The reaction is self-sustaining." The Empire's fleet hung suspended in space, each ship encased in a cocoon of engineered matter that used their own energy against them. Admiral Patil opened a channel to the trapped fleet. Her message was simple. "Your Empire has spent years studying how humans fight. Perhaps you should have studied how we solve problems instead. You have two choices: retreat, leaving your trapped ships behind as a monument to human ingenuity, or stay and become part of the largest art installation in human space. Either way, your defeat will serve as a reminder to the galaxy. Never mistake humanity's reluctance to fight for an inability to win." The response came quickly. The Empire's remaining ships, those few that had stayed beyond the reaction zone, began to withdraw. They left behind their trapped fleet, a glittering field of crystallized ships that would come to be known as the Star Garden, humanity's first galactic monument. As I watched the Empire's retreat on our sensors, Dr. Rivera transmitted one final observation that would change our understanding of our place in the galaxy. The crystallization process had revealed something extraordinary about the Empire's ships. Beneath their adaptive surfaces, they bore markings from civilizations far older than humanity. The Empire hadn't just been conquering worlds. They had been collecting technologies, building an arsenal of stolen innovations across millennia. We hadn't just defeated an empire that day. We had freed the accumulated knowledge of 10,000 civilizations, now preserved in crystal for humanity to study and learn from. In trying to use our own potential against us, the Empire had inadvertently given humanity the greatest gift possible: a library of galactic knowledge, frozen in time, waiting for us to unlock its secrets. In the months that followed what historians would later call the Crystal Confrontation, humanity's relationship with the galactic community underwent a dramatic transformation. The Star Garden, our accidental monument to innovation, became a symbol of hope for countless civilizations that had lived under the Empire's shadow. More importantly, it became the galaxy's most unique research center. Dr. Rivera led the first research team to safely extract data from the crystallized ships. What they discovered changed everything we thought we knew about space travel, energy generation, and the nature of reality itself. The Empire hadn't just been collecting technologies. They had been hoarding solutions to problems humanity hadn't even encountered yet. "Each ship is like a time capsule," Dr. Rivera explained during a United Nations presentation. "We're not just learning about weapons or defenses. We're learning how 10,000 different civilizations solved their greatest challenges. Some of these solutions could help us address climate change, energy crisis, even mortality itself." The Nexarians, who had stood by us during the confrontation, became our closest allies in this new era. The first speaker's people had experience helping younger civilizations navigate the dangerous waters of rapid technological advancement. Their guidance proved invaluable as we began to unlock the secrets preserved in the Star Garden. Admiral Patil, in her final address before retirement, summed up the irony of our victory. The Empire tried to defeat us by becoming us. Instead, they gave us the tools to become something greater than either of us could have imagined. She wasn't just talking about technology. The Star Garden had become a gathering place for scientists and scholars from across the galaxy, each bringing their own unique perspectives to the study of its secrets. Commander Hayes took charge of what we now called the Guardian Fleet, a defensive force dedicated to protecting the Star Garden and ensuring its knowledge would be shared freely with any civilization ready to use it responsibly. "We're not guardians of weapons or warfare," she would often say. "We're guardians of possibility." As for the Empire, they didn't disappear entirely. Their remaining fleets withdrew to the outer edges of known space, but they continued to watch. Only now, their observations seemed driven more by curiosity than conquest. Occasionally, we would detect their scout ships at the edge of our space, studying not our defenses, but how we were using the knowledge they had inadvertently left behind. I still visit the Star Garden observation deck sometimes, watching researchers in specialized suits navigate between the crystallized ships. The once threatening vessels now shimmer with an almost peaceful beauty, their surfaces refracting starlight in endless patterns. Each crystal formation tells a story, not just of our victory, but of every civilization that contributed, knowingly or not, to this vast library of knowledge. The Empire had spent millennia building the greatest collection of technological achievements in history, thinking it would make them invincible. Instead, their defeat transformed that collection into the greatest gift humanity could have received, not because of the technology itself, but because of what we chose to do with it. We didn't use it to build better weapons or stronger shields. Instead, we used it to solve problems, to heal worlds, to build bridges between civilizations. The Empire had studied human warfare but had failed to understand human nature. Our greatest strength was never our ability to fight, but our drive to turn challenges into opportunities for growth. As I finished this record of events, a message just came in from one of our deep space probes. It detected an Empire vessel at the edge of the Star Garden's perimeter. But this time, instead of studying us, they left behind a simple message. "You have succeeded where we failed. You turned conquest into collaboration. Perhaps, when we are ready, you will teach us how." And that, perhaps, is humanity's greatest victory, not defeating an empire, but showing the galaxy a better way to grow, to learn, and to evolve. Together.